thank you.
much.
If you could just work on the enthusiasm,
I'll
get a
try
little.
really hard, I promise.
Yeah, if you could be a little more enthusiastic, I'm thinking right. Good morning.
Good morning.
Our theme for this month is compassion, and our talk for today, as you have probably picked up, is us and them. And I feel like a lot of it has been done for me with the music and your poem. Just amazing. Well, one of the most basic principles in the science of mind and spirit teaching is oneness. Oneness. The principle that there is one source, that there is one intelligence in this world, that there is one life that moves through all of us, that there is only one thing happening in all of everything. We can call it God, we can call it source, we can call it intelligence, we can call it whatever we want to, but there's only one thing happening. We are all made out of the same stuff, God stuff, all of us. And the life that animates you, and the life that animates me, and the life that animates Karen in an amazing way, is the same life that animates everyone else on the planet, everything else, every plant, every animal, all of it. One life, one life. And though I sometimes forget, I can never be separate from that. I mean, I can forget that I'm connected to it, forget that all that God is and all that God has is mine to call upon and use. But I can never be separate from that, and neither can you, whether you remember or not. Oneness is our spiritual truth. It is the absolute truth of who we are. And yet we live in this world where we don't always see the evidence of that oneness. We see us and them a lot. We seem to live in a world where there's us, just like that poem said. There are those of us who, look alike and talk alike and eat the same foods. And then there are those others, them, the others, right? We've got Republicans and Democrats. We've got liberal radio and we've got conservative radio. We've got Fox News and NBC, and that's just a few of the divisions and the distinctions that make us look at us and them, us and them. There are also religions. There are hundreds of religions, and more than just a few of them think that they are the only one. We don't believe that, but many, many do. But the difference is the us and them distinctions that I think affect us the most have to do with the judgments that we as individuals make when we see others as others, and when we see only those like us as us. We have the circles of us. Now, I'm going to show some slides, and each slide's going to come up for about 8 seconds. And this is just for some information. We're going to see slides of different people. Some of them will look like you, some of them will not. Some of them may be considered people with disabilities. But what I want you to do is notice, and this is just notice, you don't need to say anything out loud, just notice whether when you look at these folks, you think us or them. Whether you seem connected to them, whether they seem part of your circle or not. Now, this is absolutely just for information. This is not a test of your spirituality, okay? This is just for information. Because it's not wrong to see others as others. I think it's just important for us to know what we're doing and to have that awareness. Mm-hmm. So let's watch. That was Broncos and Packers.
I see.
Okay, so this last slide was the Borg and some beings from outer space that came up in someone's imagination. This one's just for fun. But seriously, who is included in us and who is included in them? If someone from another culture, if someone from another country, someone from another teaching were to see a picture of you or you and your family, what kind of story might they make up? What might they think about who you are, about what you want for your kids and your grandkids? What would they think about how you may have treated people and how you deserve to be treated? What would they think about you just looking at a picture? You think they'd really know you? Probably not. Definitely not. Now, to lots of people in the world, maybe most of the people in the world, we are the others. We would not be considered us. We would be considered them. And it all depends on our perspective. It all depends on our perspective and what we're willing to open up to. Think back through your week or your month or however far back you want to go. Has there ever been a time when you felt like the other, where you just absolutely didn't fit and you thought that the people around you didn't consider you part of them? Well, most of us have at some time. For some of us in the room, that has happened a lot. For some of us in the room, that has not happened so much. As I look around the room, I see that practically all of us probably grew up with white privilege. Privileges that are so ingrained in us and that we take so for granted that we don't even realize. And yet, every one of us has probably felt that feeling of being the other, the outsider, the them, when there was an us. Mark Nepo, in the Book of Awakening, wrote, "The eye can see what we have in common or focus on what keeps us apart. And the heart can feel what joins us with everything or replay its many cuts. And the tongue can praise the wind or warn against the storm, can praise the sea or dread the flood." It's not that there are no differences. The world is made of infinite variety. Rather, it is the seizing of differences, the fearing of differences, that keeps us from feeling grace. Paradoxically, everything in life touches the same center through its uniqueness, the way no two souls are the same, though every soul breathes the same air. When we fall into the illusion that one creation is better than another, we remove ourselves from the miracle of being and enter what the 6th century sage Sing San called the mind's worst disease. The endless deciding between want and don't want. The endless war between for and against. And I would add, the endless war between us and them. We get what we focus on. Now, have you ever noticed that if you are riding your bike or driving your car and you start looking over there, that before you know what's happening, your wheels have turned and you're kind of headed in that direction? Happened just last week on a bike ride. It's like, oh, how'd I get over here, you know? Well, that's what our attention does. I mean, we see what we focus on. And that's our perspective. There's so much that's going on around us that we don't even notice because we see what we focus on. Ken Gordon, who is the spiritual director for Centers for Spiritual Living, said this: if we're looking at ways we're different from other people, we'll find them. If we're looking for ways we're the same, we'll find them as well. It's not hard to see ourselves in others if we look. It's far more difficult to demonize or diminish others when we're aware of how much we all have in common. How much we all have in common. Now, our hands are different shapes, but most of us have fingers. Our hair, it's different colors, but most of us have hair, or at least did at one point. You know, we have so much in common. We all want and need food and shelter and clothing. We need people to love us, and we need absolutely important work to do. We need to feel valued. We need to value others. We have all of that and so much more in common. And you know, I think we all want a better world, better opportunities for our children and our grandchildren and their children and their grandchildren. Isn't that what we all want? Yes. Absolutely. So, why is it that we make us and them distinctions anyway? Well, I think it started back in the caveman days. You know, when families and food sources had to be protected, and if somebody strange came around, there was a likelihood that there was going to be danger involved. And so we kind of learned that wariness. But you know, our intelligence these days, we have far more intelligence, and we can know absolutely that there is enough food on this planet to feed everybody. It's only the greed and the unwillingness to share because of a fear of scarcity that keeps everyone from being fed, that keeps kids from, you know, going to bed with empty bellies. We could do it if we all decided that there was enough. If you knew that you had enough, and you knew that you had enough, and everybody knew that they had enough and plenty to share, our world would be in a much different situation. And sometimes we don't want others in our us circle because they remind us of some things in ourselves that we might not really want to see. Now, does anybody else in here have someone in your life, maybe even more than one person, that is an expert at pushing your buttons? I know there's at least one other than me. Okay, well, you know, these button pushers act as powerful mirrors for us. When somebody really gets under our skin, you know, it's often an opportunity for us to look at, how is that in me? I see it in them and I hate it. I hate it in them. But in me, oh, maybe. I have a friend that drives me crazy. That's what happened, in case you're wondering. She is controlling. She is judgmental. She thinks she knows what's best for everyone, and she's not afraid to tell you. You know, just whether you want to hear it or not. But, you know, as I look at how I think about her and how I judge her, I say, she is so controlling. She thinks she is always right. Well, I can relate to that. I mean, you know? And she thinks that she knows what's best for everyone and that it is fine for her to tell them that. Well, I'm here to tell you that I am still working on keeping my mouth shut at times, but I have so much experience with saying something, giving some advice, or sharing an opinion, and then later regretting it. So I can see so much. She drives me crazy because I don't want to see that stuff. It reminds me that it is in me as well. And yet, we have our work. We all have our work. And having our spiritual work to do and having our shadow side to look at doesn't make us bad people. It makes us growing people. It makes us people who are willing to learn and move into our greatest yet to be. If I'm triggered by someone I judge as lazy, it may be that there's a part of laziness in my life that I don't want to look at. If you judge others to be greedy, it may be that there's some area of your life in which you are greedy that you really don't want to see. So I encourage you to look at those magical gift button pushers as gifts in your life and to work with that. We are so human, all of us. In What We Believe, Ernest Holmes wrote, we believe in the individualization of the Spirit in us and that all people are individualizations of the one Spirit. Now, that is the basis for the principle of oneness. That is the basis for us being all connected at a very deep level. The fact that each and every one of us is an individual expression of the one Spirit. There's only one mind in the universe. The mind that I use and the mind that you use and the mind that you use, all of that, we are using the mind of God. But there's only one mind. And when God calls, it's really important. It's really important to pay attention. Whether we know and remember it or not, we're here because Spirit chose to express through each one of us. Spirit chose to express through you with your way of looking at things, with your delights, with your quirks and challenges. You are here because life decided to live as you. And you know, that's true of everybody else. Absolutely everybody else. Those people that we see in the news that we think of as them, they too are here because life, Spirit, has decided to express as them. Life wants to see through your eyes. Life wants to create through your thoughts. Life wants to sing through your voice. Life wants to grow and expand as you. As we expand our circle of us, even just a little bit, we are practicing oneness. We're opening to the truth of our oneness. And there are some ways that we can nurture and nourish that feeling of connection and oneness. Now, we have our curiosity. I mean, don't you just get curious about some things? Although I must say, as adults, sometimes we have tamped down our curiosity and we just don't allow ourselves to be as curious as we were when we were kids. But, when we see someone that seems different, we can wonder about them. We can open up a little bit and maybe even imagine, wow, what were they like as kids? Huh. If they seem to have come from someplace else, we might let our curiosity go and wonder where they came from and how they got here. I mean, I certainly know that there are some politicians and news media people out there, and I think, what planet are they from? And where did they pick up those crazy ideas? But we can use our curiosity. We can use our curiosity to wonder. When we see people who appear to be different from us, who are different from us in many ways even, we can wonder what brings them peace and joy. We can wonder what's important in their lives. We can wonder what their dreams are for their children, their nieces and nephews, their grandchildren. So Spirit has chosen to express as you in all your uniqueness. And the more we are ourselves, the more Spirit is able to really express through us. When we're trying to imitate someone else, it just doesn't work very well. It doesn't feel very good to us, and life does not get our full expression. But to remember that inside each person is this divine spark of life that calls in many ways. The divine spark of life. I've heard that there's a campus, I don't know if it's Unity Campus or not, but where every time, maybe it's a Buddhist campus, where every time a phone rings, people are not expected to turn their phones off, but it's taken as an invitation to take a breath, remember your godness, remember that spark of divinity in you, and remember that that's in everyone else as well. And that brings us to the magic practice of namaste. It's remembering and saying silently something like, the godness in me greets the godness in you. The love intelligence in me recognizes the love intelligence in you. That spark of the divine that lives and grows and has its being in absolute limitlessness. That part in me recognizes and honors that part in you. So we can do that simply with the word namaste, or whatever words we want to use. The godness in me greets the godness of you. Because at a deep level, we have come from the same source. And at the deepest level, we are one. We're here as individuals and as humanity to evolve and grow. And we do that together. I believe humanity is at a critical junction here. It's time for those of us who are awake and aware, who are conscious, to absolutely answer the call to remember our oneness, to remember the truth of our peace and our wholeness, to remember that, we're not so different from those we call them. And here's the good part. What happens when we remember our oneness? When we remember our divinity, even for a minute? Our hearts soften. When we remember our connection with others, our hearts soften. Now, we still do what we're called to do in the world. We still take action to alleviate the suffering of many, if that's what we're called to do. But we do it with a different energy. We do it with the energy of compassion and love. And that makes us even more powerful and more effective. And while we're remembering our oneness, even for the tiniest bit of time, we stop struggling. We stop struggling trying to figure out who's us and who's them. We stop struggling to figure out whether I fit or I don't fit, whether they fit or they don't fit. We allow the kernel of peace that is within each of us to expand just a little bit. We can take a breath. We can allow our light to shine brighter. We can allow our peace to encircle more people. We can allow all of those blessings to go out to our family, to our community, to our nation, and ultimately to bless the world. Y'all up for that?
Yes.
Yeah. Let's say our affirmation together. Recognizing the divinity within each person, my light shines ever more brightly, and I am grateful. Once more. Recognizing the divinity within each person, my light shines ever more brightly, and I am grateful. And with that, I invite practitioners to stand in high consciousness, knowing our oneness, and let's move into prayer. We are one. There is no separation. But right here and right now, God is, and God is all that is, no matter what name we call it by. Spirit has chosen to express as each person here, as me, as Center for Spiritual Living Boulder Valley. Spirit has chosen to keep evolving, keep growing, keep learning, keep being absolutely what it is through us. And so I claim that all of us remember that wherever we are included in the one. And that as we go forth this week, as we look around and see the amazing variety of people and beings around us, that we absolutely remember, whether it's just for a second or not, that we are one, that we are connected, that we are all part of this evolution. So I absolutely know that as we go through the week, we are blessed, that each person has filling their path exactly what's needed for their joy, for their health, for their abundance. And that we remember that we are one. We are one. We are one. And so it is.